All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, both fans of all ages, I am Beast Mike. You have now arrived in my train of thought. It's time to talk about power rankings before we get into week 6. But before we get into that, I'm going to do something a little different when it comes to these power rankings, at least for this week. The NHL is back, and fun fact about me, my favorite sport to see in person is hockey. I love how fast it is. I love the speed, I love the physicality, and I love the passion and energy that comes with going to hockey games. With that in mind, I decided to label each tier with a team based off of what they did last year in the NHL and how good or mid or awful or terrible that each team was. Let's get to business with the San Jose Sharks zombie tier. Carolina, lack of patience. Imagine what could have happened in Carolina had they not been so impulsive. Had Carolina not made the trade to get Bryce Young, they could have taken the 9th pick. Maybe it's Jalen Carter. Maybe they get some help for Brian Burns in terms of another edge rusher. Maybe they get some more help along the offensive line. Try to build and then sit this quarterback draft out and end up going, okay, we're probably going to be terrible again. We can go get Caleb Williams. We could give him DJ Moore. We could have a decent offensive line, keep Brian Burns together, so on and so forth. Things could have been better. But their lack of patience cost them all of this and have suddenly allowed the Bears to become a borderline playoff team. Also, they still owe them a second-round pick next year. And none of this had anything to do with the beating that they took from said Bears this past week, except for the whole Caleb Williams to DJ Moore thing. He kind of cooked and had a very nice touchdown reception. Moore did, anyway. New England. May Day approaches. Okay, I think everyone's getting what they wanted. Everybody wanted to see Drake May and see if he's got it. Here's my problem with this. That offensive line is terrible. And Jacoby Brissett, as I saw last week, and those of us who were unfortunately watched the Dolphins-Patriots game, and pretty much only Dolphins and Patriots fans watched the game, noticed that whenever there was a 5-step or 7-step drop for Brissett, there was somebody usually in his face, and it was not great for Jacoby, who can actually move around a little bit. I don't know if Drake May is going to have the answers here, and he's going to be debuting against a Texans team that's got 2 real good edge rushers. This is going to probably be bad for May. He'll be flashy, he'll be fun, and I think people want to see that. I think he's also going to be on the ground a lot. Yikes. Jacksonville, got usual win. Death, taxes, and whenever the Colts play the Jaguars and the Jags are the home team, Jacksonville wins. It's been that way for the last 10 years. There are actual 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders who have never seen the Colts win a game where the Jags are the home team. It is quite a thing. And of course, because the Jaguars have been terrible for the last 9 months, Jacksonville decided not to up the difficulty to all Madden status by giving up 2 touchdowns in 2.5 minutes and still finding a way to win the game. Yeah, I guess we got a mix of everything in that game in Duval. A mix of, the Jaguars are supposed to win this game, because of course they are. Yet, the Jaguars are bad, so they probably should have lost this game, because of course they did. And yet, the Jaguars are off the schneid. Will this be their only win of the year, though? They've done it before. Cleveland, Buckeyes and Guardians. Seems like I think a lot of the sports attention for those in Cleveland should probably be focused on these 2 teams. Now, yes, the Guardians, as I record this, are currently down 2-0 in the top of the 5th inning that just ended, so bottom of the 5th inning, I guess, as it were. And the Buckeyes are going to go to Oregon and play a crucial game with the Ducks on Saturday afternoon, or Saturday night, as it were. I think that's where your attention should probably go when it comes to sports for the time being, because if it's going to football, it's not going to a very nice place. It's not great. At least Myles Garrett's a beast. Las Vegas, bad to worse. So the Raiders are probably inevitably going to trade Devontae Adams. Some are saying this week, some are saying next week. He hasn't played in the last 3 weeks. They've already benched their quarterback in Gardner Minshew, who looked really good in Indianapolis and all of a sudden looks cooked as a Raiders QB. Maybe they can flip him for other pieces. And now they've lost Christian Wilkins, who they spent a bunch of money on in the offseason, and he's going to probably be out at least 4 weeks and possibly longer than that with a foot injury. It's not great, And I like Antonio Pierce, but this is looking like a terrible situation. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball. Now they can't stop anybody. They're losing people left and right, not named Max Crosby. Even he missed a game. It's looking like it's going to be a disastrous season. Raiders, I think y'all should just pack it up and hope and pray that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders falls to you in the draft. That, I think, is the right way here. Speaking of Christian Wilkins, let's talk about his former team, Miami. Run the ball. Even when Tua gets back, and I think he will be back by the Cardinals game in Week 8, run the football. It worked. You can actually do it. Mike McDaniel went back to his roots. He was a run game guy in San Francisco, and he did it well, and they ran it, whether it was Jalen Wright, whether it was Devon Chan, who unfortunately got concussed, whether it was the returning Raheem Mostert, they all ran it well. Al Gingo got a rushing touchdown. Everyone ran it well. It was great to see. Even when Tua returns, the best way to protect him, run the football. Run the ball, and then that play action becomes nasty with Waddle and Hill, and you can absolutely bury teams over the top with him. I think Tua's coming back, and if Miami's able to beat the Colts next week, then the Dolphins are very well in play, I think, especially with a returning Tua. Run the football. Tennessee, Predators season incoming. Similar to the Browns, I think the Titans season's not going too far. And with that, you have the Predators, who I think are a very capable, good team. I don't know how healthy Steven Stamkos will be, but I think the Predators are going to be a legitimately solid squad, especially with Philip Forsberg in the building. UC Saros is also a beast in net. Can they get out of the first round? We'll see. As for Tennessee, I don't think the Titans are very good, but Will Levis may supply us with more memes. You can never have too many memes. And the New York Jets. Hackett's still there? So now I'm going to talk about the solid stuff. And it feels like this might have been an Aaron Rodgers thing. I don't think they're going to beat the allegations of Aaron Rodgers had nothing to do with this. And when Aaron Rodgers actually talked to Woody Johnson, or Ambassador Woody, that's a wild situation to call him, on Monday night and then fired him Tuesday morning, that feels like a scheme. And it feels like that Saleh was going to fire Hackett at that moment in time, and Woody Johnson dropped the axe first. That's crazy as well to think about. And then now as a grand finale, it feels like this is terrible timing. The defense is actually what's carrying the Jets. They're 2-3 because of the defense, and Aaron Rodgers is actually playing well against the Patriots. And he gets punished for it? Make this make sense. I get it. It's the Jets. Making sense is not really something they do. It's kind of a foreign concept for them. But this just doesn't make sense. I think they should have fired him in the offseason if they were going to just fire him. If they were going to choose between Hackett and Saleh, which obviously I would have chosen Saleh. And now the allegations of Aaron Rodgers being the true general manager of this team and not Joe Douglas, I don't think they're really going to beat those. At least while Aaron Rodgers is still a quarterback in this league. Rodgers is not the guy that everyone thought he was going to be when he went to the Jets. Or, as I said that he was going to be when he got there, Justin Verlander from the Mets. Let it be known. Now let's get to the Philadelphia Flyers monkey's paws here. Some of you may remember that the Flyers were a playoff team for a lot of the year this past season and ran out of gas at the very end. Though they had Matvei Michkov coming over, and he looks like he's going to be an absolute monster. That could be fun. As a Flyers fan, I appreciate that. Anyway, Cincinnati, wasting big three. And by big three, I mean Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, because those three guys are getting it in. The two receivers are going to get paid a whole lot of money and deserve every penny of it. I'm very sure Higgins isn't going to get paid by the Bengals, and I'm losing faith by the day that Jamar Chase is going to be paid by the Bengals. And those two plus Burrow are not the reason why the Bengals are 1-4. This defense is terrible. Trey Hendrickson's awesome, and I like Sam Hubbard, and I like a couple of the linebackers, but this defense is bad, and they're not beating the allegations of they had their shot and didn't take advantage of it, and now their window is rapidly slammed shut. That's pretty rough. Indianapolis, 10 straight losses. Like I mentioned, death taxes, and you can't win in Duval. That's a really ugly situation for the Colts. And Indy's had some pretty mixed bag times this year. Some great, some bad. This is one of the latter category. surely the Colts are going to beat the Titans next week, even if Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson aren't healthy enough to do it, right? New York Giants, a surprising win. That was impressive, going to Seattle and winning that game the way they did. Yes, they overcame the 14-point swing of the fumble at the goal line and the ball being taken back to the crib, and had their own 10-point swing with the block kick taken back to the crib on their end. But it's truly the defense that won this game to me. The 7 sacks, they harassed Geno Smith all day long, and Kenneth Walker got locked down. And Walker's been the most stable player on Seattle's team this year. And for him to only get 19 yards rushing is a very impressive work by the Giants defense. They will be tested by a really good Bengal offense this Sunday night. How will they fare? LA Rams, it's injuries, right? Okay, I think it was fair to expect Los Angeles not having too much punch without Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp. But it feels like at times the Rams just don't have the energy or the juice to really make things happen for themselves. And Kyron Williams is very good, but it feels like Matt Stafford just doesn't have enough horses to get the ball to, aside from Williams. When the Packers jumped on him, it just never really felt like the Rams are going to have enough juice to come back. And this defense, though, I like where it's going, just isn't quite there yet. Jared Verse aside, Jared Verse is like a beast. But it just feels like the Rams just don't have the punch this year. And it's a shame because of how well coached they are and how good Stafford is. This might be another gap year for LA, but at least they're going to have the draft picks. That's going to be important for them. Arizona, first of 3. I said before, I think the Cardinals are going to get 2 or 3 wins that make you say, what? They beat that team? They were able to come back or blow out or whomever. They did that to that squad? This was one. Going to Santa Clara and beating the Niners the way they did and shutting them out in the fourth quarter and getting those 10 points, coming back from that deficit is incredibly impressive to do. Yes, the Niners aren't 100%, but that's a game that everybody expected the Niners to win easily anyway. And for you to do that and pull that off, incredibly impressive. And they did this with Marvin Harrison being effectively locked down by the Niners, to be honest. And basically on the backs of Kyler and a couple of turnovers by the defense. A defense that got absolutely shredded by the Commanders the previous week, got shredded by the Lions the week before that. It's really, really impressive win. Again, I think the Cardinals are going to have 2 more of these that'll make you go, they beat that team? And eliminate a bunch of people from suicide pools. LA Chargers, we discover offense. We saw what happened in weeks 1 and 2, and I get it. The Panthers and the Raiders are both pretty bad teams that you were able to maul over and beat up because your offensive line is like that, and you have 2 really good bruising backs that can wear you down. But it just feels like the Chargers, since that Panther game, have just not been the same. Have just not been right. Okay, they played the Chiefs as one of those games, and the Steelers, who have an excellent defense, in one of those games. But it just doesn't feel the same. Can the Chargers get healthy and get back to playing kind of sort of bully ball on offense after this bye? New Orleans, not week 2. Yeah, it's not the same for the Saints, who have also not been right since week 2. After they bludgeoned the Cowboys and made everybody go like, whoa, this Saint offense could be like that. And then the Eagles said, like what? And they have not recovered from this. They have not been the same. Now David Carr's going to be out for a couple games, possibly. That's a really, really bad look, and it's horrible timing considering their opponent this week. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And also, Alvin Kamara, he's kind of been nullified and neutralized over the last couple of weeks. That's a very bad look there for the Saints. The defense is kind of holding sort of steady. They didn't do a terrible job last week against the Chiefs, but I don't know how long they could last with this offense regressing relatively rapidly, to be honest. One of the teams that beat the Saints, Philadelphia. Have you healed? This is about, obviously, Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown, 2 of which got concussions. And obviously A.J. Brown's hammy. Have you healed on offense? Because without those 3 guys, that offense is incredibly below average. Saquon aside, and Dallas Goedert too, because those guys handle business. Have you healed on offense? And even then, unit I'm more concerned about is your defense, whom we have seen not look good at spots during this season. Can your defense possibly improve now that you've had an extra week to prepare for the Browns? If there's one thing I've learned about the Eagles over the years, is that regardless of coach, regardless of venue, regardless of situation when it comes to the Eagles in terms of their play, they always have a game that makes you go, they lost that game? It's very anti-Cardinals in this realm, where, as I just mentioned, I expect the Cardinals to get 3 of those. They won that game? The Eagles are almost guaranteed, without fail, to have one of those, I can't believe they lost that game. They haven't had it yet. The Falcons are pretty good. The Bucs are good. Cleveland would be one of those, I can't believe they lost that game. And if for some reason they do lose this game, Nick Sirianni's not going to beat the, you're a terrible coach, you need to get fired allegations. And I think he's going to hope and pray that the Phillies figure it out in this series against the Mets and win this series. They can move on in the NLCS and take attention away from the Eagles in the event of an Eagles loss on Sunday at the Link. Let's get to the Carolina Hurricanes playoff tier. It is kind of ironic because of what I'm about to say. Chicago, Caleb, or Carolina? And by the latter version of it, I mean Panthers. Now, I asked this question after the Bengals took care of business against the Panthers last week. And as we found out, the Bengals offense is like that when Chase and Higgins are healthy for Burrow. They can't run the ball, but they can certainly sling it. Obviously, Joe Burrow can, and they can certainly catch it. Higgins and Chase can. In the case of the Panthers, this past week, they got absolutely cooked by the Bears because Caleb Williams was like that. DJ Moore handled business. DeAndre Swift did well. Chicago was able to move the ball with relative ease against a pretty bad Panther team. But that's the problem. Caleb probably played his best game as a pro this past Sunday. Can he continue to improve and show that, okay, he's improving week to week and can be anywhere close to the guy that he was built to be in this rookie year? Denver, Surtain is CB1. I don't want to hear anything different as of this moment in time. Pat Surtain is the best cornerback in football. This man has locked down every top receiver in front of him. He's obviously got the 2 NOs last week. One of them he took coast to coast and basically flipped the game around. Instead of 17-3, it's 10-all, and the Raiders never recovered from the first NO. PS2 has been amazing since Denver acquired him in the draft and has continued his play and has been worthy of the contract he got. He has been basically as advertised in Denver. This defense is legit too. Obviously, PS2 is the leader of it, but this defense is legit as well. And as long as Bo Nix does not crash the car, like I said yesterday, the Broncos are going to be in play here for at least the winning season and possibly the playoffs. Seattle, gotta have this. This is a monster game coming up with the Seahawks after this loss to the Giants by 2 scores. Kenneth Walker only having 5 rushing attempts is inexcusable. You have to feed Kenneth Walker the ball. He's been probably your most stable outlet on offense this season so far. Yes, DK's been great, but Kenneth Walker, when he's around, has been probably your most stable player. And even when he's not, Zach Charbonnet's been getting it in. You got to run the ball at some clip this coming week against San Francisco. Another blown lead. Kyle Shanahan, I don't get it. Does like his brain turn off or something? Is like the things override? Like what happens here when Shanahan gets a lead and things are supposedly rolling in the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden they are not rolling at all in the fourth quarters? That's the second division loss that the Niners have had where they had a lead they probably shouldn't have blown and ended up blowing it with relative ease, to be honest. Big plays, penalties, mistakes in the Rams game, a lot of mistakes on offense and with the turnovers, and they just kind of sort of played with their food after the third quarter in the Cardinal game. A game they gotta have, a game I will talk about in a little bit. Pittsburgh, classic Steeler game. They have developed the reputation the Steelers have of being probably the most boring team in the NFL. And their games are almost always the same. We're going to make this ugly and it's kind of a street fight in a back alley somewhere in Allegheny County. And you may get out of this game, but you're going to get out of this game with some bruises, maybe a shiner, something like that. It's almost always the same game. And almost none of it features really good QB play. And that's what this past week one was, where Dak Prescott played pretty badly. He had the got to have it drive, but aside from that, he wasn't very good. And the Steelers didn't get QB play. That was good once again, but it almost didn't matter. All Pittsburgh had to do was get one stop, and Justin Fields not being all that good on Sunday night into Monday Morning Football wouldn't have mattered. They'd have been 4-1 anyway. Buffalo, Allen and McDermott. The former probably had a concussion. The latter absolutely brain farted. The latter's actions, McDermott, that can't be disputed. What are you thinking? Why are you having Allen throw the ball after said concussionable hit on first, second, and third down pretty much at your goal line? Run the ball, make Houston burn their timeouts, go to overtime, take your chances with a coin. I get it. Buffalo versus coins is one of the great rivalries in football. Or is it really a rivalry because Buffalo versus coin tosses, that never seems to go well for them. Anyway, what are you thinking, Sean McDermott? Why would you do this? Just run the ball with James Cook 3 times, make them burn timeouts, or even with Josh Allen, if you want to get him out of the pocket, I would advise against it, considering the hit he had literally just taken minutes earlier. Either way, giving Houston a golden opportunity to steal the game from you, or not even steal it, because the Texans were the better team for a lot of it, to win the game at your expense just seemed like a terrible idea. And now you're in a gotta have it game, I would say, on Monday night, because if you don't get that, then the AFC East is incredibly wide open. Let it be known. I will talk about it in a little bit. Dallas, Dak money drive. There's a reason why he commanded $60 million a year. There's a reason why he got $60 million a year, other than Jerry being incredibly stubborn. The Cowboys had to have those types of drives. They need those drives in more important games, big games, primetime games, etc. And they got it from Dak Prescott this time. Great work by the Cowboys to do that, but I'm pretty sure they don't want that kind of stress on their hands. The fact that Dak was able to win that game without CeeDee Lamb being a major part of the victory is impressive. And the fact that they were able to hold the Steelers down without Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, also impressive. Deron Bland may be back, and that's a huge deal considering how opportunistic he can be. Can he get back to that form that he had last year? And Tampa Bay, missed face mask. Yep, that was a face mask. There's no other way around it. They absolutely screwed the Bucs over on that call. Sure, Tampa Bay could have gotten the stop at the end of regulation and kept it moving. Obviously, Baker and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin have done well, but Tampa Bay could have finished the job even with the bad face mask call. And I think the Bucs are going to be fine as long as they keep this going and hold it together. The defense could get a little bit better, but I think part of that's Antoine Winfield returning. Tampa should be fine, though. And now to the Florida Panthers titles here. They are the Stanley Cup champions. They're worthy of this. Atlanta, shiniest Icy Kirk. Yes, it is a little frustrating to see that they simply don't get the ball as much as we want them to Pitts, Robinson, or London, but they find a way to get the ball to where it needs to. At least Kirk Cousins does. Tyler Algier is still a good player, and the ascension of Darnell Mooney is incredibly impressive to watch. Atlanta's got a formula. It's working on offense. The defense could stand to be better and get to the quarterback a little bit more proficiently, but they have something brewing. Falcons, keep it going, regardless of what fantasy owners will say. You also got 2 monster wins against your main rivals in the NFC South. Huge tiebreakers until you see them again. Great work, Falcons. Keep this rolling. It's not all perfect. I would like to see the defense get a little bit better and the pass rush kind of sort of show up. But other than that, I think the Falcons are in pretty good shape. Up next, Baltimore, La Masterclass. There's a reason why Lamar Jackson's got 2 MVPs, and there's a reason why he's generally owned Joe Burrow when the Bengals have played the Ravens and both guys are around. That was spectacular from Lamar, and he had to beat what Burrow was. He was excellent, and Derrick Henry got in where he fit in. That NO by Marlon Humphrey at the end was clutch. The Ravens had a gotta-have-it game, and they got it. Well done by Baltimore. They're going to have to keep this going because the Division of Doom is kind of serious. At least the AFC Division of Doom is kind of serious. And the Ravens kind of bully ball, if they are able to continue to play it, I think is going to be very dangerous going forward. Green Bay, Xavier McKinney dominates. He's looking like one of the best signings in free agency of this past cycle. Every game he's played as a Packer has resulted in him getting an NO. That's 5 of them, and he's got 5 NOs. Also a fumble recovery, because McKinney's kind of showing off at this point. He's been spectacular this year, and the Packers finally spending money on a guy seems to finally work here. Josh Jacobs finally got a rushing touchdown for the Packers. Good look on their end. I do want to see Jordan Love be a little bit less erratic. That was a pretty rough NO that he threw the pick 6. Just take the safety. You didn't have to try so hard. But as long as Jordan Love is healthy, the Packers are in real good shape. Now they got to fix their situations with Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, the former with suspension, the latter with health. But the Packers are in a great spot in an NFC that's kind of sort of wide open, to be honest. They are going to run it back with Minnesota, and they got 2 with Detroit and 2 with the Bears. The NFC North might be this year's division of doom. Washington, Daniels deals again. Yet again, Jaden Daniels continues to absolutely cook cats. I mentioned before in my recap yesterday that he was very good once again. That bomb to McLaren was awesome. That bomb to Dynamic Brown was awesome. He also had a long 40-plus yard run that set up another score. This is looking like a very good investment by the Commanders. They might have their guy, finally, for the first time since RG3's rookie year. As long as they don't squander it, I think they are in real good shape. And it feels like they have the personnel not to squander it. Just keep them healthy, you'll be good. I do want to see the defense improve. I would love to see Washington, if they're going to be in this race, go after some defensive help from a bad team. And I think if they can do that, I think they'll be all the better. I like what I'm seeing from the Commanders. Houston, who replaces Nico? That could be a low-key devastating loss for a month, now that Nico Collins is officially on IR. He's been the NFL's best receiver this year in terms of yards, and he has been a constant threat down the middle or down the field for CJ Stroud. He hit a home run right before he got hurt once again. It's a shame, too, because he's looking like a great young receiver. Now, in theory, Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell are going to get their volume up, and maybe John Mechie gets his volume raised up, and Dalton Schultz as well. But the home run hitting, yet still he's 6'3", can go get the 50-50 type ball, Nico Collins, that's going to be a really hard thing to replace as Houston goes along. It'll probably take attention away from the Astros not winning a game in these playoffs. It's going to be weird to see the ALCS with the Astros not in it. A city that could be hosting ALCS games? Detroit. Tigers and Lions. As I say this, the Tigers are actually up 3-0 in the bottom of the 6th inning. They got a man on second. Maybe Detroit can win another game in the series with the Guardians, and it's 2-1. Possibly they can clinch the series tomorrow. But anyway, back to my power rankings. The Lions look good. They take one too many risks, it seems like, per game, but they look really good. In theory, this bye week is going to help them kind of sort of recover and get sort of right. But there really aren't too many complaints about the Lions, I have, honestly. As long as they don't take too many risks, I think they're going to be perfectly fine. They've got back-to-back games, one of which I'm going to talk about now, one of which I'll talk about next week, that are crucial and pivotal if they want to get the 1 seed. But I don't have too many complaints about the Lions. One of these games is going to be against Minnesota. Jones injury concerning. Ty Chandler, though capable, didn't have the same kind of pop and potential home run hitting threat that Aaron Jones provides and presents. And when Jones got hurt in the first half of the game against the Jets, it just never felt the same. And maybe part of that's because the Jets' defense is very good, but their offense never felt the same in the second half. And with that went Sam Darnold, not reverting quite to, okay, he's a bust mode, but he just wasn't right. They weren't getting the ball to Jefferson or Addison, and things just didn't flow properly. Now, I'd imagine Aaron Jones will be back at some point soon, and maybe even TJ Hawkinson will be back at some point soon, at which point this offense could really make a jump and take off. But if Ty Chandler can't properly somewhat replace Aaron Jones, there could be some problems along this offense. I have no complaints about the defense. It continues to cook and handle business. But then there's Kansas City. Somewhat flashy game. It's not even just about the lateral. It's the fact that Kansas City's offense looked productive. And they were able to move down the field relatively solid and relatively efficiently. Mahomes made plays, and Kareem Hunt ran the ball well, and Juju Smith-Schuster was making some plays. They looked good. They looked productive. And it's kind of boring in a way because all of a sudden, okay, you got the best quarterback in the league and the best coach in the league, and the defense is still excellent. It kind of makes things boring even when they're flashy. And that's really bad for everybody else. Kansas City actually played a complete game for once. Who knew? They could actually still do that. Now to the games of interest. First, the zombie tier games. Steelers and Raiders. And this is here because it seems like whenever the Steelers play the Raiders, and we know the Raiders are bad, and we know the Steelers are at least decent, the Steelers don't normally win this game. They are normally the victim for the Raiders, and it almost never goes well, and it looks awful, and then Pittsburgh Talk Radio is on fire the following night or morning. Steelers, please don't fall into this trap. Now that we know Aiden O'Connell is the QB going forward, and we know that they don't have Christian Wilkins, and we know their offensive line's not very good, do not fall into this trap. Y'all barely won last year in Vegas. Don't do it again. And now Falcons-Panthers. Similar deal, right? Atlanta probably didn't make the playoffs in some regard because they lost this game and a couple others that were incredibly frustrating. They went to Carolina, didn't score a touchdown. Desmond Ridder threw a very bad NO. Atlanta never saw the ball again, and Carolina got their second and final win of the 23 season. That, along with some other games, made me think that the Falcons were the most frustrating team in football. Atlanta, learn from your mistakes. Carolina, okay, this is probably going to go bad, but if for some reason it doesn't, I will absolutely be looking more so with a side eye like Stephon Diggs at the Falcons than I will at you. We'll see how this goes. Of course, I had to talk about the Jets and Bills and the Monkeys pause here. I had to do it. Let's face it, this is a gotta-have-it game for both teams. In the Jets' case, gotta have it to kind of sort of quell the noise a little bit, where everybody's talking like, oh, this is looking ugly, and this is a typical Jets season. But what if the Jets win this game like they did last year with basically Zach Wilson? What if for some reason they win? Now we're looking at the Bills like, oh, your 3-0 start ain't all that great. And now you're 3-3, and the AFC East is incredibly wide open, where you potentially have one more week before Tua gets back, and the Dolphins might be in play, and the Jets now are head-to-head tiebreaker again, and you're in first place. They're in first place. This could be a critical week for both teams, where the winner we're going to look at, all right, you might have stabilized yourselves, while the loser we're looking at like, this could be chaos coming. And then the Cardinals-Packers. I like what Arizona is on offense, even if the defense is underwhelming. I like what the Packers are on offense, even if sometimes things just don't seem to work. I like what this could be. This could be a fun, high-flying aerial show with Jordan Love and Kyler Murray. And what kind of defense will they have from Marvin Harrison? I mean, the Packers. What kind of defense will the Cardinals have for the dynamic receivers they have? And will Green Bay be able to run the ball effectively like previous teams have done against the Cardinals? A fun, dynamic game. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in Lambeau. Let's get to the playoff tier games. Bucs and Saints. And this has been a crazy week for Tampa Bay as they have prepared in New Orleans for a lot of the week due to Hurricane Milton. I hope everybody's safe down there in Florida, especially obviously the southern states, as everyone's going to be dealing with a very dangerous and treacherous hurricane. Hopefully everyone's going to be safe down there. With Tampa Bay, this culminates the triangle of NFC South battles between the Bucs, the Saints, and the Falcons. Atlanta's already won both their ends. Obviously, the loser of this 0-2 in their ends with the tiebreaker stuff. Crucial game in the division. The Saints have to recover immediately based off the last couple of weeks and beat the allegations of them being suspect. Tampa Bay just has to recover from losing to Atlanta the way they did. Crucial game. Looking forward to see both these offenses do what they need to do. And then Niners and Seahawks. Two blood-fueled rivals who have absolutely despised each other in the last decade or so at different points. But this has become a game where the Niners generally win and bully the Seahawks. But these Niners don't seem to have the same energy as those Niners have had over the years. And it feels like San Francisco may be on their way down. yes, I like what Mason's done to replace Christian McCaffrey, but he's still an RB2 in most realms. And Brock Purdy has been okay, but at times he's been kind of pedestrian. And the defense, though productive, not hitting with the same thunder that they generally hit with. It's a bit of a concern. And then there's Seattle. I like their energy. I like their offense. I like their ability to hit people on defense, sure. But there are times where Seattle just falls flat, and that's kind of concerning to me as well. This is a game I think we're going to find out some things and we're going to get a good amount of answers. And the loser of this game is going to be a little bit of trouble considering the NFC West is all of a sudden really competitive. And now let's get to the title tier games. Cowboys and Lions is a vital one. We saw these two teams play a great game last year in Dallas, and the Lions basically had it stolen from them. And now they're going to Detroit to run it back. The Lions are off a bye. They're able to get healthy. If we've learned anything about the Cowboys this year, you can run on them if you're competent enough to do it. And Detroit is certainly competent enough to do it with the thunder and lightning combo that is David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm looking forward to see how Dallas can counter that, especially without Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Meanwhile, when Dallas has the ball, can the others, not named CeeDee Lamb, help the cause once again? That's going to be a crucial part to the Cowboys. The Lions defense isn't great, not named Aiden Hutchinson, but can the Lions defense do their part to contain CeeDee and make everybody else beat them? Similar to how the Steelers were able to contain CeeDee, but they got beat anyway because Dak had gotta have a drive and made it happen. Crucial game in the NFC. And finally, the game of the week, the Battle of the Beltway, but the football edition. Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Commanders, Ravens. Two dynamic offenses. One good defense, I'd say, in the Ravens. One mediocre defense, I'd say, in the Commanders. This is going to be a fun game. I'm expecting lots of points here because when the Ravens have played higher-powered offenses, they have not looked great. And the Commanders, no matter who they played, have dusted pretty much everyone. Marlon Humphrey versus Terry McLaurin. That's a battle I'm looking forward to seeing. Interesting to see Dynamic Brown versus Nate Wiggins. I want to see that. I want to see what an experienced defense and what Baltimore generally has can do against Jaden Daniels. This is going to be an incredible game and a really good litmus test for Washington. Are you like that? This would be a good game to show us if you are. With that, you've reached the final stop of this train of thought. Waiting for me at the station are the Dolphins, the Chiefs, the Vikings, and the Rams. Those 4 teams are off this week. But the other 28 are going to be playing, and I'm going to be predicting those 14 games. As always, you can find them on the Sports Lounge page. As for video form, Seattle and San Francisco, you will be the first stop on my next train of thought.